what you've been dealing with, as we all have been through this global pandemic. So thank you for having me, and it's great to always work with you. So, well, good morning, and here we go. We're going to start a new Congress, a new administration, a completely new dynamic in Washington D.C. And we were, we're looking forward to it. I'm excited about it. As we move forward, we'll see, what the agenda will come up to be. I'll talk a little bit about what we would like to see happen. From my perspective for the 12th congressional district, and look, that's my number one priority is the 12th congressional district. So that's what we're going to focus on. And right now, the topic of conversation is, what the next package that's coming out. And President Biden has put forward a $1.9 trillion package. That package has some good things in it, but it also has some things that are pretty questionable of being in a COVID relief bill again. The other concern, and it's also with some Democrats too, is we just passed a $900 billion COVID relief in December. And I'll kind of go through that also because that had the second round of PPP that is being allocated right now. In fact, I received a text last night that they received their second round. So they were very excited about it. And I'll be able to answer questions on that. So, those are some of the things we're going to look at. I mean, obviously, the other big thing that's being talked about and that I'm receiving texts and phone calls from a lot of businesses is the $15 an hour. Did an interview with some of the Central Ohio TV stations last week. Was on Mark Blazer yesterday, and Mark and I talked a little bit about it on 610 yesterday. So, that's definitely a topic that's in this $1.9 trillion package. I think, where the president is really focused, and I think it's good, it's the vaccine rollout and to continue getting that rollout done. In the 12th congressional district, we've been pretty successful. I would say very successful even as to what we have been doing. Our local community hospitals, Licking Memorial, Genesis, Ohio State, Riverside, Ohio Health, are moving along. I'm communicating with those folks, talking to them, and my staff is also communicating with them. Andy Morris is at OSU. They just did a big rollout on Monday, opened up the Schottenstein Center. So they were doing that. I know here in Muskingum County, I spoke with Sharon Parker, who was leading it here, how successful it has been. I'll just say for them, Genesis has leased out the space, the retail space where Elder Beerman was. I can successfully say that both my parents were in and out of there very quickly. And I know the same things happen at Licking Memorial also. I've communicated with friends that have got their parents in there at that 80 and over bracket last week. Been very efficient, not waiting around a lot. So I think that's encouraging, but we got to keep this thing going. Right now what we have is Moderna and Pfizer that's available out there. Most of you have heard that Johnson & Johnson is currently very close. I don't know if a lot of you know this. Not Rob Portman's one of the patients of that study, so he's been doing it from the very beginning. The difference with Johnson & Johnson is it's just a one-shot series. It's not two like Moderna and Pfizer. So that's definitely going to be something that's going to be. I'm excited about the Johnson & Johnson. So we will see, and as I'm excited about all of them. But we're going to keep focusing on that and keep doing it here at a local level. And I think it's important that, we continue with this vaccine. I was at the gym last night and, I ran into somebody and, that's kind of like the question. If they don't own a small business, they say, hey, Troy, what are your thoughts on the vaccine? And look, I'm encouraging everyone that the more people that we can get vaccinated, the better that we're going to be and the more normalcy we're going to have, not only here in the district, but also in the whole state of Ohio and throughout this country. So, if any of you have any questions about that, or you have friends or colleagues, I encourage you to reach out to our office. And a lot of you on this call personally know me and have access to me. And as always, and just ask the question, my thoughts on it. And again, I would sit here this morning and tell you, I would encourage you to take the vaccine. I know there's some situations. I'll just give you one example on that. My son and his wife, they're in their mid 30s and she's a nurse she's an RN down at Vanderbilt, and Josh was in IT down in Nashville. But and by the way, they're making their way back to Licking County to move. So that was my Christmas present. to help with her parents. So um, the in a situation like that, they want to start a family here within the next 2 years, probably. So I know that Chelsea had reached out. That's my daughter-in-law's name. She'd reached out to some physicians there at Vanderbilt, and they talked it through about maybe waiting for it. Obviously, she was going to be able to make her own decision, but they're going to wait. And look, they're at that age bracket where this is not significantly impacting them as much. Now, I'm not a doctor by any means, but those are some of the questions that come up. So we'll get through all this and keep communicating with each other. That's the biggest thing that we have to do. The other thing I'm really looking forward to, most of you know or are aware of, that I am actually on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, along with the Small Business Committee. I was appointed last Congress to the Agricultural Committee. So those are three really important committees that I'm on, and I'm honored to be on those committees. Obviously, in the last Congress, the Small Business Committee was the busiest committee other than the Ways and Means Committee, because once we passed everything out of the Small Business Committee, it would go to the Ways and Means Committee for some financial approval. And, I had the opportunity, and I know it doesn't get out there, unfortunately, but, I had a bill signed into law on July 4th. Myself and Angie Craig, a colleague of mine, she's on the small business. She's a Democrat from Minnesota, great lady. We've done several bills together, but this is one bill that was signed by the president, President Trump, that extended the PPP. But also what was the big thing for me was the 60-40 ratio. Most of you know that the first CARES Act came out with, it was a 75-25 ratio for 75% to your paycheck protection plan, and then 25% to your capital cost, overhead cost that you had. We changed that to 60-40, and it was passed, and then the extension went up to August 8th. The other big one, and this kind of got a little bit misscrewed, and I fault a lot of, and I don't even want to find fault, but the confusion out there from the last $900 billion package that we passed was misled, that it was, and I'd love to share all that with you, is look, it was the process that was crummy. I mean, it was not a great process, but most of you heard, we also did the funding bill the exact same time. And, the funding bill was passed out of committee in July. So when you heard all about, these foreign countries, the Kennedy Center and the Smithsonian and getting government funding, it was interpreted that this came from the COVID relief bill. That was the farthest thing from the truth. And I try to explain that in as many groups as I can, because it was not a fair assessment of what happened. And, as I sat here in my house and I had, we were doing a conference call for that COVID relief bill. The number one item that we had in that bill, that we wanted in that bill, and it was the number one, and I don't know, I saw Tim McLean's on this list, and Tim and I went to lunch and talked about this with my chief, Terry Geiger, was the non-taxable income for the PPP. And it was the top priority. And in the CARES package, we passed it to be non-taxable. 2 months down the road, the Treasury came back and said, well, we're going to make that taxable now. Well, obviously, my phone blew up, and it's just like, wait a minute, Troy, I did a business model, a business plan for $150,000 with this PPP. Now I'm going to be taxed on it. I wouldn't have taken it then. So our challenge was to make sure, and we fought for months. I was talking to, I'll never forget, I was talking to Treasury at 9 o'clock on a Friday night back in summer, talking about this and how, I didn't think it was right. It was unfair that, now the businesses were going to be taxable on this. So number one thing in that $900 billion package for that COVID relief bill was to make sure that those dollars were not taxable income. And we as Republican conference told Mr. Mnuchin on a Sunday 11:30 phone call, said, we will not support this bill unless you put in the non-taxable piece. And, it's pretty cool to watch it go through. And he said, okay, I'll let everybody know here later this afternoon. He came back to us that Sunday evening and told us that it was agreed upon that they would make it non-taxable again. So very successful in that package. We were pleased with that package. But, that kind of all got thrown into one big bill. Speaker Pelosi on a Monday said, look, I've got to combine these two so we can get it passed out this week. So the process was terrible, but there were two separate bills of what we were doing. And that just wasn't out there. And everyone says, how'd you read 5,500 pages? I said, I read 5,500 pages because the bill for the funding bill passed out of committee in July. I got a great staff. I myself, we all get together, we go through bills, we dissect these bills when we go through them. So we are prepared to go out there and answer questions that you all have. So we knew in September what was in that funding bill and whatnot. So I was, I was sending out the paper about the foreign countries that received the money, and they were all White House proposals. But that's what that process was. So great COVID relief bill. I was very proud of that $900 billion package. We wanted the liability piece in there. That didn't get in there. So they negotiated. The Republicans and the Democrats negotiated that bill to come out to be a great bill. So as I said, the 1.9 trillion that President Biden has put out right now, we'll go through a process with that and we'll see where that ends up. But, just stay focused on that. The other thing that Congress is talking about right now, and as I said, I'm on Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, is an infrastructure bill. We've been talking about it now for 2.5 years, something that, would create a phenomenal economy, but also take care of our roads and bridges, and rural broadband comes into that. I mean, your water, your sewer. I talked to the mayor at Hebron. I mean, some of the things that he would like to see done there, and I know Mayor Hall would also. So, there's a lot that can happen with this infrastructure bill, and it's not all about roads and bridges. There's many other things, and one of the other bills that I have taken a great interest in, or I don't even call it a bill, but it's telehealth. It's something that has developed since this COVID has come upon us, and how much that's expanded. One of the problems with that, though, is the rural broadband piece, and making sure that people have access to the internet. Obviously, our education is huge, so we're going to continue working with state legislatures. They passed a bill. It didn't get to the finish line last year. Deal a lot with Rick Carfagna. Rick led that bill, and Terry and we all have spoken, and my staff has spoken with Speaker Cupp, and we'll start working with President Huffman on saying that what we can do. I also communicate a lot with John Husted, Lieutenant Governor. This is something that's very passionate about John, and there's a pilot program going on right now down in Scioto and Jackson County, where we're using EMS towers for internet connectivity. So I'm excited about that. It's frustrating that we've been talking about it for 20 years. I think 2008, when the Obama administration put out the big stimulus package when we were dealing with the recession, that was part of it. And we seem to be very stagnant as we move forward with the internet. But the telehealth piece is, and I love to share stories, and that's the blessing of this job is communicating with people. And there's a family, they actually live outside the district, but I work a lot with Nationwide Children's Health, and this is a family, and the husband and wife have 2 disabled children. But what that means for them to be able to do the telemedicine at their home online, it drastically changes those kids' day, because it's an hour drive to Children's Hospital. It's a 45-minute wait in the waiting room. It's an hour drive back home. This is all done now at their home, and that's huge. The kids are around a surrounding that they're comfortable with. The parents are there. They have the one son had a support dog. The support dog was there with them. So, telemedicine is here to stay, and we're going to keep working to advance that. So those will be one of the other priorities that I'll be working on as we move forward with this next Congress. I'll take a breath, Jennifer, if you want me to, but I'll take questions. As I said, the second round of the PPP is out and about. And as I said, I got a text last night about 10 o'clock that someone received their second round. And it's a lot of questions they're asked about. You're muted, Jennifer.
Sorry. On that subject, I will ask one of the questions from Paul Thompson with First Federal. He says this round of PPP has more technological issues. They're going to be sending you a letter kind of highlighting all that, but specifically addresses the PPP portal does not appear to permit a lender to upload a borrower's application for a second draw PPP loan if they've submitted an application for forgiveness. And then he goes on to say also about, let me pull up the next question, something with farmers. So the SBA says they cannot resolve and will require a legislative fix. There is an issue the way the legislative text was written for certain farmers' ability to get PPP loans. It's convoluted, but the way it was written, only certain types of farmers qualify for this round of PPP. Can you send further information?
Yeah, Paul, I mean, we'll connect with you offline on that and answer your concerns and address your concerns, Paul.
Okay. And then Michelle Newman asked, our teachers have been in the front line of the epidemic since early, but the Licking County Health Department was notified over the weekend that they will not be receiving the vaccines the 1st of February as expected. Is there anything you can do to get the teachers a vaccine sooner rather than later?
To my understanding, because I live with the teacher, she teaches in Westerville City Schools. She was informed of the same email. She just said it was backed up 2 weeks. Now that was as of last night that Melanie received that email. So I'm pretty sure they should be back on track. And that's not about holding back. That's about getting the quantity. I mean, the vaccine here to the state of Ohio. The whole Ohio delegation did do a call with Governor DeWine last week, including Rob and Sherrod on that call last week, and talking about the distribution to Ohio for these vaccines and making sure we get that rollout. So we can also follow up with you, but to the best. And I just learned that last night because Melanie received the same email. She was supposed to register yesterday in the Westerville school system, and they've backed it up for 2 weeks before they're going to be administering those shots. So I'm going to venture out there and say the reasoning was probably the amount of vaccine that we have, and that's part of the big piece that we're trying to make sure that we get here. So and other states are doing other things because of their distribution and how quickly this is going through.
Okay, Doug Hauser asked, will we finally see some progress on a real infrastructure bill? Seems like that's something everybody should be behind.
Yeah, and Doug, thanks. Yeah, we talked a lot about it last Congress, trying to put a package together. Mr. Buttigieg is the new Secretary of Transportation. He has come out and said that he is anxious. I know Chairman DeFazio is the chairman of the T&I committee. He was rip-raring and ready to go. Last Congress, we had forums, panels. We were doing a lot and taking a lot of suggestions. So look, I mean, it's got to be one of the top priorities, and it's big deal to this district. I mean, we employ a lot of people through infrastructure, and it will be a game changer to get this economy back up.
Okay, Leslie Wagner from Dawes Arboretum wants to know if you've had much communication with the museum community during the pandemic and how they have benefited from the CARES Act grants. For your information, Dawes Arboretum received one to produce free online content for the community.
Thank you, Dawes Arboretum. I enjoyed running out there, by the way. Yes, and we have communicated a lot throughout the district with the museums, and we want to continue moving forward with those. They're still on the table, and it's something that's very vital and important that we continue to support.
Okay, Bryn Bird, Granville Township trustee, talks about the CARES Act funds that they received and thought they had to get out by December 31st. And then on the 27th, the deadline was extended, but it was too late and they'd already allocated most of those funds.
I apologize for that. I wish you'd have reached out because that was part of the $900 billion. That was part of the CARES package that we passed out of the December. And that was another top priority for us. A lot of the local governments, some of you on this call were calling me personally, but also emailing the office. And, Mayor Chris Grooms up in Dublin and Lori Jabman over at Gahanna. I mean, this was a top priority. So I don't think, unfortunately, we can change that, but it has been extended. And, look, that package that we passed in December was a good package. I mean, it was a great package, and it did some extensions And most of you have heard me say this before, Jim and Matesic and Sarah worked very hard for the family leave piece that was also extended. And, Sarah got a lot of her colleagues to do letters to the office. But it was something else that we were, really advocating for. And that got in the package also for that extension. So, it makes a difference when all of you communicate with us. It really does. And whether, picking up the telephone, I know people email a lot, but the more conversation that you can have and communicate with us is the better. We do receive the emails. We go through those emails on a daily basis and a weekly basis, and making sure that we circle back with all those and get those answered. So it matters. Don't think that your voice does not matter, and it's important. And in what we're dealing with right now in government, and I know that this next administration's talking a lot about unity. I want that conversation to talk about civility. And if we don't start talking to people face to face and getting behind these, the computer and just doing our communication that way, it makes it much more challenging. So I encourage all of you to, to reach out to me, reach out to our staff. I got a great staff, and I put a lot of pressure on them to make sure that they follow up with all of you, that they work hard there to give you everything they have. I tell them, when we sit down, and Terry, pushes the same thing, is, look, we're going to be there, and we're going to give you every ounce of energy we have for your problem. We may not fix it. It may not come to the result that you want or the resolution that you may want, but by golly, we're going to give you everything we have to make that happen. So continue to communicate with us. And talk to us and let us know what's working. And, we'll look into Paul's piece. And Paul has brought up other things beforehand that makes us aware of things, and, we'll follow through with those.
And I would definitely will say David Cordania is awesome. So is Terry, but David's usually the one that calls me, and he follows up on every question I give.
David's our district director. And look, and that's, when I go into high schools, or when I talk to kids, I ran into a young man. He's in high school, and he came up to me and wanted to introduce himself at the gym last night. It's important, that we talk to them. And, I want my staff, and what we've implemented is to empower them. I mean, they're they're an arm of this district too, and they're part of this district. So I got to empower them and, let them learn and make the decisions that they need to make.
Okay, I have another question from Amy Huddleston. Can you share the status of the liability piece? Our business is still at risk for being held responsible for people contracting COVID. And she has a second question. What are the chances you think of the $15 minimum wage going through?
Good morning, Amy. Amy, the first question is, the liability piece will definitely come up again in this next package that the administration is putting forward. As I said earlier, that's been something that's been one of the top 3 priorities from the Republican conference. And at the time, Leader McConnell was also one of his top priorities. So the conversation will definitely come up again. Will get to the finish line? I'm pretty sure it will. I mean, there's a lot of agreement, on both sides of the aisle for that liability piece. And it affects everybody. So big topic. We'll stay in touch. Amy, obviously, business people are on this Zoom for the $15 an hour minimum wage piece. I got text even on Sunday. Look, I don't agree with the $15 an hour minimum wage. We have a market out there right now that, minimum wage is pretty rare anymore. I mean, most people, I go down 270 going to the district office or going into the district, and I see a big banner, and I saw it coming back Saturday on the side of Worthington Industries. That's, it's a $1,500 sign-on bonus and $20 an hour starting, the full benefits. I mean, the market out there, the job demand is very high right now. And, small business people and mid-sized people, business people in general, care about their employees. And Amy's the same way. She's going to take care of that employment because it's too hard to find more people. I mean, think back to this. I mean, a year ago right now at this time, we had the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years. There were more jobs than there were people to fill them. So we're in a new dynamic now of where the job market's very competitive. And, you know, to have a business set that they have to pay minimum $15 an hour. I mean, look, God bless 16-year-old kids and working at McDonald's, but, you know, there's got to be a starting wage and you work your way up for that environment. So, you know, I will be advocating not to do a $15 an hour minimum wage to the federal. Ohio's just went up because number one, let the market work. It's working. As I said earlier, in most, I can't give you a percentage, but the majority of, you know, business owners and businesses and leaders that I speak to, you know, pay well over, I mean, some even pay over $15. I mean, Amazon right in Licking County pays $18. I have, you know, restaurant owners, you know, call me and say, hey, I lost an employee to, you know, so-and-so because, you know, they're going to get full benefits and 18, I can't afford that. And I think to talk about a $15 an hour minimum wage right now during this pandemic is the last thing we need to be talking about. I mean, the businesses, look, they're doing everything they can do to survive. And one of the texts that I got on Sunday was, Troy, I mean, I'm down to just my husband and I with the hamburger facility. And we can't even hire people right now. We're doing everything we can to pay our lease in our building, let alone, you know, when we hire people back to have to pay $15. So, you know, there's many stories like that out there. So again, let the market work. You know, people will be rewarded for the work that they put in. And I think that that's important that we do that. We don't need big government and telling small business people how to do their business.
Okay, Ryan Gleason from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Thanks you for joining and wants to know if you have any reaction to Senator Portman's retirement and who might be the best fit to replace him.
I think it's a big loss for Ohio. And you know, I've had the opportunity to get to know Rob. I first met Rob on a, you know, introduction level back in 2010 when he decided to run for the U.S. Senate, and I was a state rep and I represented Coshocton and Muskingum County, and he knew my ties to the ag background and 4-H, and so he wanted me to help him introduce to some ag folks in Coshocton County. Look, he is so smart. I mean, I remember riding around the motorhome when I was getting him around, and he's brilliant, and I think it's a great loss for Ohio. He works in a bipartisan manner, but look, it goes back to exactly what I said. And he referred to this. I mean, this civility piece, you all need to understand how it's tough. And, you know, I know there's some media people on here, but we're going to need help from you all also. I mean, it's going to take everybody to get us back to look, we're going to disagree. And that's what government's all about. That's what democracy is. That's our founding fathers, you know, implemented our Constitution this way. You know, we're not always going to agree, but we have to compromise. And I think it isn't that I say it's not hard because I've done it and I know what it is to do it. And it forces me to get off this and go talk to someone face to face and communicate. And that's what we need to do more of now. But you know, this whole, I mean, every time I turned around, I mean, it was just, you know, someone was upset. And I kind of go back to that, you know, COVID relief and the funding bill that we did. And, you know, as I said earlier, I mean, it was a terrible process, but that's what you need to focus on. It was the process. Both those bills were good bills, the funding bills that we did. And no, I didn't read 5,500 pages in 24 hours, as I said. I knew what it was at the end of July when it came out of committee. Nothing's going to change anymore once it comes out of committee. My legislative director at the time, Brittany Manning, we all break up these bills and we read these bills, including me. You know, I think Rob is going to be missed. It's going to be a free for all. Look, I went through a 20-way primary too. It's going to be just like that. You know, as we move forward, I've not heard anybody. You know, I've had a lot of people reach out to me and The media did a little bit yesterday. I will make it official. I'm blessed. I'm good. I love this district. I love being able to communicate with all of you. We make it a top priority, and Troy Balderson's going to stay in the 12th Congressional District and continue to give everything he has for that.
Okay, this one's really specific, so I'm gonna have to read it. It's from Sarah Schwab with Matesic.
Go
She's
figure.
She said in February of 2020, a delay was applied to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, their entry-level driver training certificate program, until February 2022. The pandemic has taken a lot of time and energy away from this issue. And with 1 year away from implementation, she's concerned that both DOT and state driver licensing agencies are still not ready with their trainer provider registry, which is a TPR. She says this program is yet another barrier to get more CDL drivers trained and on the road. Are there any updates or information you can provide on the progress of the TPR?
Sarah, I'll get with you offline. Not that I'm aware of, but we'll get some information and see where that is. We are aware of it. Nate Zenfer is our policy for the T&I committee, and most of you on this call know who Nate is, but we'll get some answers for you. Sarah.
Okay, Rita Kipp asked that you believe you are not a member of the Problem Solvers Caucus, which is, she says, a bipartisan group. Can you comment on whether that group might be able to mitigate some gridlock?
I'm not a member, but I'm not a member for a reason. And there's a couple things. I am a member of two other organizations. Main Street is one, and then the Tuesday group is the other one. The Blue Dog Democrats have the same. So we work with the Tuesday group and our Blue Dog. The Problem Solvers, I mean, look, yeah, I hope they can. I mean, we all try to. I mean, look, I don't need to be part of a caucus. I am, and I love it because it's a great way to meet, new people. But the relationships that, I continue to develop, again, allow me to have those conversations. And every bill that look, I'm in the minority. So for me to have a bill pass, I have to work with a Democrat to get that passed. So if I want to bring something back to the district, I mean, do you want me to fuss and fight with somebody all day long and not agree to it? And then I don't get, something that I need to, get for the 12th Congressional District. So, that I practice that every day. I do it in the state legislature also. I know I have a record of it, and I'm very happy with my record and proud of the record of my working across the aisle. Look, we do it in everyday life. We have to communicate with, partners or our business partners. And it's so, look, let's not make it more complicated than what it really is. So the Problem Solvers Caucus is a good group. I know most of them, they're in that group, but all those groups work hard so we can get things done. You all don't get to hear all that stuff. I can tell you there's over 200 members of Congress that talk, communicate, have a normal conversation, that aren't running the Fox and CNN and, getting in the newspapers. I mean, there is that controversy that does go on, but the 200 plus members of Congress that you don't see on TV or hear about in the media, we got our sleeves rolled up and we're working for our districts.
Okay, there's a question. Stephanie Bosco with Garlic County said, we talked a little bit about teachers, but she says daycare workers don't have access to early vaccine distribution. Is there anything that can work to change that?
We'll have the conversation. It's been brought up to us in the office, and look, the vaccine piece is challenging, and just making sure that we get it to the most needed as quick as possible. And yes, I would put you in that category. We're trying to get police officers vaccinated still. So, work with your local county officials. We're going to work with them too. We've been, reaching out, as I said earlier, to communicate with them and do anything that we can do to help getting that out there. But look, they know best, what to distribute to, but we will be advocating to get everybody, and we're going to encourage everybody to sign up and get the vaccine.
Okay, You ready for this one? So Ben Lanka from the Advocate asks, what was it like? What was your personal experience like during the January 6th at the Capitol, and what was it like being there?
See, now, Ben, I'll answer your question, but I wish you guys would talk to me more about COVID relief bills and stuff. But anyways, and that I passed a bill and was signed by law that we sent to you. But anyways, Ben, it was horrific. I mean, it was hard. It was sad. I was on my way to the chamber. I was not in the chamber. I was in one of the tunnels, and I was turned around to go back. But probably the biggest impact for me, it wasn't being locked down, but then it was going back that night. And, to see what had taken place and to see the destruction and it was heartbreaking. And so, it was very challenging for me to go back and to see that. But we got to move forward, and we have to we got to fix a lot of things, and that's where I go back to, Ben, is this whole civility piece. And I know you guys didn't put it out there. No, we sent the information. I did not object to the electoral college votes. My father and my mother raised me well too, but my father and drove me. I mean, I followed the Constitution. And I did what was to be done and what the obligation was of Congress to do. So, and I will always do that, but we've got to move forward. And Ben, we've got to make sure, look, there were a lot of people that, and I'm dealing with it on a daily basis now of how they felt about the irregularities that happened with this election. And I think Pennsylvania's a question, because Pennsylvania changed the law in the middle of the election piece. So, some of that doesn't get talked about, but we have to get our act together, and it's going to take all of us. And as I said, Ben, it's going to include the media too, to make sure that we work together and we communicate some of those things. So we will continue to do that. And I will. I've always done it. I'm not changing anything to do what's best. And but to go back and to see that it was sad. And people, and I communicate with people. I mean, and I know this isn't the congressional district, but it was in the Senate district, and people need to understand there are people out there that are hurting, and they want someone to listen to them. And whether it's a man that I know down in Perry County that worked at a coal mine down there for Buckingham, I'll throw the name out there. I mean, Buckingham Coal, and to have it shut down, it's gone. And that was their life. I mean, it employed 375 people in rural Appalachia that minimum paid $60,000 a year and up. These people have nothing now. When you're in a coal mine and they say, and when I was chair of the Energy Committee and dealing with this, back in my state legislature days, they say, well, we'll find jobs for them. Well, yeah, Jobs and Family Services come in, they do a great job. It's a month. But when you have a 50-year-old coal miner, it's kind of hard to re-educate yourself to do a complete 360. Can they do it? Yeah, they'll work because they know they got to survive. But these people want to be heard. And it's painful when you know that they feel like their voice isn't being heard. And some of you on this Zoom call might feel the exact same way, but you all have interacted surely with somebody that's in this realm of just wanting to be heard. And, it's the same concerns that, you may have, but look, my number one job, is to represent you, but part of that number one job is to listen. And this is something else that we implement. Listen. Don't give them listen to what they're saying. That's what's important. Communicate with them and listen. And if you don't do that, then they don't feel they're being heard, and they need to feel heard. But this build up frustration that's out there right now, we got to change it. And that's civility. I mean, when you can get on Twitter and threaten somebody and be behind a telephone and call everybody a really bunch of bad names, that's not what that was meant to be. That's not what that's for. So it gets misused very much. So sorry to make a long-winded answer, Ben, but that was my January 6th day.
And I will say one more kudos to you too. I think back in March, I said to you, you need to allow, or maybe it was April, the 501c6 nonprofits
Yep.
to be eligible for the PPP. And you kept getting back to me and saying, hey, we're trying to fight for you. We're trying to fight for you. And we finally got it. I applied yesterday and got notice that, it's going to the SBA. So thank you so much.
And again, Jennifer,
and I know it was a long effort.
It was, but again, there's that, that last care package in December. I'm here to tell all of you, it was huge. And it was a lot of fun doing. I mean, it truly was, because we were able to piece so many things in from that gap when the first package came out to make the necessary changes. So again, I'm really excited about that last package.
Yeah, so I definitely thank you. And we've been very, very fortunate here in Licking County that, we've done a really good job staying afloat and actually doing really well. But there are other chambers that had to lay off staff. And so I know they're bringing them back now. So definitely thank you from all the chambers. One last question here comes from Michael Gottschalk with Henderson Auxiliary Axle. He says the infrastructure efforts will start around the HR2 bill. Will any consideration be given to increasing the weight limits for commercial vehicles? This would address greenhouse gas, safety, road congestion, and freight efficiency.
Yeah, and kudos to Michael. I mean, this is something he's worked on, and he, he knows he's worked out at the state level also. This is something that's always comes up in every transportation bill that we did in the state legislature. Michael, yeah, that conversation will be started again for sure. And I know that you know that, but we'll have that markup, but that will definitely be part of the conversation as we move forward with Transportation Committee. And I know that you and I will be talking.
So that's all the questions we have. Anything else you want to wrap up with?
No, again, thank you, everybody. Again, David and Terry are both on this call, and I believe Stephen Reynolds is on the call also. So I would encourage you, we'll send you their contact info. Stephen does the Small Business Committee. If Nate's on the call, wasn't sure if Nate was getting on. Nate is our new legislative director. I know we have a new health policy person, Davis. I know that he has reached out and has spoken with Licking Memorial, but anytime you need us, please, we're here for you. We will be there for you. And something else that I really advocate for, and this made me think because I brought up Stephen's name. So I'm going to go tour a frack facility. That's a frack is when the deep wells are actually fracked, and I've been on several, but a friend of mine is doing it, and it's got 2 other local businesses that'll be there involved in it. And what's cool about that is I can expose my staff to stuff they'll never see. So when they pick up the telephone over then they're in the district, they can communicate to you that they've been there, they've done it, they see it. And that's huge, instead of sitting behind a desk or a computer, for them to get out there. So again, I know every congressional office probably says it, but I got the best, and we work hard to serve you and look forward to the next 2 years in Congress. And thank you for the opportunity to represent all of you.
So thank you again. Your support means everything to our community. And I want to tell all the businesses too, I know they already know this, they can always reach out to me, and I would be glad to talk with Troy and kind of relay anything, and have done so. But just a reminder that, I think once every couple of weeks you give me a call, just random, hey, how's it going? What's going on in Licking County? Can we go visit businesses? And that's so refreshing, and I really appreciate all that you do.
Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate your relationship also, friendship.
All right. Everybody have a good day, and thanks for being on the call. And I will be emailing out the contact info to everybody that was on here as well.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.